But, Dawn, we have another incredible game to cap off the college football playoff quarterfinals. That is number 2 Georgia against number 7 Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl, New Year's Day night, I should say, 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. A lot of fascinating storylines in this game. The Oregon-Ohio State one is great, but we kind of know what we're getting into with it, right? We know we've had full data points on everything in that Oregon-Ohio State game. This one, Dalton, with a backup quarterback for Georgia, I have no earthly idea what we're going to see on New Year's Day night. So let's talk about that passing game first with Georgia, with Gunnar Stockton making his first career start in the college football playoff quarterfinal against one of the best defenses in the country. This is as much pressure as anyone could have for their first career start. But when he's out there with Gunnar Stockton out there and the Georgia receivers and the Georgia line and everything against the Notre Dame elite defense, what should we be watching with the Bulldogs pass game?
What do you got? I mean, sometimes it's that simple as what a backup quarterback in a struggling receiving core.
Yep.
What do you got? Because I'll tell you what, Notre Dame, we mentioned it last week, man coverage, highest rated cover 1 in the country. They're going to line up with Leonard Moore and Christian Gray on the outside and Xavier Watts at free safety. And they're going to run man coverage, and they're going to challenge you. They're going to press up on you. Marcus Freeman might even blitz you early in the game to see if the young kids got composure. But 94.3 coverage grade in man coverage, best in the country. 13 interceptions, most in the country. 32 forced incompletions, I believe that's second. 53.8 passer rating allowed. When Notre Dame's in man coverage. I'm not telling you they've played murderer's row of quarterbacks, but I'll tell you what, they shut down Indiana pretty good last week. And we know that offense can run. And yes, they deserve to be there. But no, this is just what is the plan? What is the plan for Mike Bobo? Because their receivers, even with Carson Beck in there, they've been struggling to separate anyway. We've talked about this, it feels like every single week this year, where Brock Bowers killing it in the NFL, Ladd McConkey killing it in the NFL, and if they're in the NFL, they're not at Georgia. And you've got a team against man coverage this year, Max, 61.7 receiving grade, 100th in college football, 100th. Just 19 explosive plays against man coverage this season. 6 of those came against UMass. They have not been able to, even if Carson Beck was playing, this would be an extremely difficult assignment because Georgia's wide receivers can't separate. They basically create most of their explosive plays against man coverage are either screens or plays where Mike Bobo really called something like a nice pick to a wheel or something that he drew up that is designed to beat it. And he's going to have to empty the bag here, I think. I think he's got to make Gunnar Stockton's life easy. Now, I've told you before, when you have a young, inexperienced quarterback like this, you play this much man, at the very least, it will be easy for Gunnar Stockton to see. Mm-hmm. He's going to walk out there, and he's going to see Xavier Watts 15 yards in front of him, and he's going to see everybody else impress and go, okay, I know what the coverage is.
Yeah.
At least I know what it is. The problem is now a matter of execution because, again, Georgia's weapons don't separate very well. And he's making his first college start in a game like this. It's going to be a matter of execution. I think Mike Bobo in the passing game is going to have to time everything up. He's going to have to call a perfect game in the passing game. I mean that. I think everything that he's ever drawn up to beat man coverage needs it in this game. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a real battle for Georgia dealing with this because Notre Dame, they're as good a man coverage team as there is in the country, and this more than anything else in this game is where they have even with Beck in there, I think they would have a decided advantage here. Now with Stockton, even more so.
So I know you're a big X's and O's guy as a former coach. What are some of your favorite man beaters in the playbook? I know mesh is a classic one that a lot of teams use.
Mesh is a big one. One of the things you can do more so than sometimes route concepts is formations, is bunching guys up. And sometimes even that's how Ohio State avoids it sometimes too. Like I mentioned before, you tighten down the splits and you give your guys three-way goes. You know, you kind of make – when you tighten formations down like that, we talk about how slot receivers have those three-way goes, right? Because they have every part of the field to work with. When you cut down formations like that and you even get in bunches, everybody has that. It's like everybody becomes a slot receiver, and it's hard to press when you're up in those bunch formations. So, and I think that's something we've seen a little bit is where we can get in these bunch formations and we can start picking guys and just start designing things and do kind of what the Denver Broncos used to do with Peyton Manning, where it's just like, look, we're going to get away with OPI as much as we possibly can because that's just sometimes you do that. Because, if you're Ohio State and you're seeing press man all the time, I can just chuck a go ball to Jeremiah.
Yeah.
And it's going to work. We saw that last week again. Which one was it down the left side? Was that the one on McCoy?
I think it was.
That he got, and then he was tweeting about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a Jeremiah Smith, you can just go, or a Jamar Chase or somebody like it, you can just go, well, that's my guy.
Yeah.
We're just going to isolate him backside. For Georgia, I think it's about bunches and and motioning into those bunches so they have lesser time to react to it. And a lot of times teams will react and go zone, and then you can start to create different looks. But I think it's tightening everything down and getting guys to where you're kind of breaking up the leverage. You're running those picks without getting called for pass interference. I think that's where they have to live. The play design is going to have to be flawless because they don't have that number one threat. Last year when they had Ladd McConkey, they could just go, yeah, he can burn you on a post. Watch him run routes. They don't have it this year, right?
Yeah.
So they have to get really, really creative. I think that's where I would go is start bunching guys together and tightening down the splits, kind of like Ohio State does.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the man concept against a, brand new quarterback is kind of a double-edged sword. Because like I said, it makes it easy on him because he knows exactly what he's looking at out there. At the same time, you got to make your throws then, right? There's not going to be wide open windows where guys, find the soft spots in zone coverage and get wide open. And with Georgia's receivers not separating the way they've had in years past, it's even harder to beat man coverage as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword for Gunnar Stockton. Mentally, it's a little bit easier, but then it's on your arm to make the right throw.
And the other thing, you better know where Xavier Watts is at all times. He's
a playmaker.
If you stare to one side, if you don't look him off, there was a play actually even more impressive than the interception he had against Indiana was the one that he almost got to late in the game. Curtis Rourke did not look him off, and he chucked a go ball to the right side, and Watts just absolutely took off. He's got sideline to sideline range. If you don't know where he is and you're trying to throw the ball downfield, you're doing it wrong. You better find every way to make him hesitate because he's got range for days. Very, very dangerous. He's a big reason. You talk about man coverage, about winning one-on-one outside, but having Watts back there is a major luxury for those guys, knowing if they do maybe screw something up, we still have number 0 back there ready to find the football.
Yeah, one of the best pure safeties that we have in college football, and I would argue the best ball hawking safety that we have in college football as well. So, you better be watching out for Xavier Watts, number 0 back there in Notre Dame's defense. Obviously, don't with the backup quarterback in for Georgia. You'd want a really good run game to take some of the pressure off in this kind of game of this magnitude. So I'm looking at how the Georgia Bulldogs perform against the Fighting Irish's heavy boxes in this game. Because like you just illustrated, Notre Dame's elite secondary is going to be trusted one-on-one against Georgia, especially with the backup quarterback back there. The heavy cover one rate, that allows you, though, to move a lot of defenders into the box to help stop the run and send blitzes against Gunnar Stockton as well. Notre Dame has had 8 or more defenders in the box, heavy boxes, on 211 defensive snaps this year. 4th most among Power 4 schools. They've only surrendered an explosive run 12% of the time. Top 20 mark in the nation. Explosive run is about 10 yards or more in our system. They've only surrendered a 10-plus yard run 12% of the time. We're getting top 20 in the country. Georgia's run game's been strong all year. They're the 18th best rushing grade in college football, but they have not performed very well against heavy boxes. They only average 2.8 yards per carry against heavy boxes. That's 96th in the country. They average 1.8 yards after contact against heavy boxes. That's 109th in the country as well. They're going to likely need their run game to thrive with a backup quarterback in there with an underwhelming receiving core against an elite secondary. Every matchup favors Notre Dame's pass defense against Georgia, maybe besides the pass rush against the offensive line, as long as Georgia offensive line is elite in pass protection. But everything else in terms of the secondary against receivers and Gunnar Stockton against that secondary as well, that favors Notre Dame. You need this run game to be good. But if Notre Dame can stack the box against you and take away the run game as well and make Gunnar Stockton beat them, I really think the Notre Dame defense has a big advantage in this one. So I think they got to find some success on the ground against the Notre Dame defense. They'll probably sell out to stop the run as well.
2 things happen on the second level in a run game if you're going to have success. 1, you have backs like an Ashton Jeanty who can break tackles and shed through linebackers and safeties and things like that. Or 2, like I just mentioned before, good runs are blocked at the first level. Great runs are blocked at the second level. And what that tells me is that Georgia isn't quite elite at getting to the second level, right? And 2 guys I'm looking at on the inside, I know the heavy boxes and safeties rolling down, but man, oh man, especially down the stretch, Jack Kaiser and Drake Bowen, linebacker, these are hammers. And Kaiser, we know, is really athletic. Absolute hammers on the inside. I think those are the 2 guys that Georgia, they need to find a way to get to them. And I know their tackles haven't been quite as good as the interior guys. We've had some shuffling going on at left tackle, but if you don't get hands on Kaiser and Bowen, boy, your backs are going to be a little bit mad because they're going to get lit up. I'm telling you, Bowen especially, what a year he's had, and Kaiser we know is an absolute weapon. I think those are the guys I look at on that second level. You know, when you're talking about Trevor Etienne and Nate Frazier and what Branson Robinson running on the inside there, are they capable of breaking tackles? Sure. Absolutely, and they're going to need to, and against Kaiser and Bowen, I think it's a really fun matchup.
Absolutely. So, Dawn, Georgia obviously got to rely a lot on the run game probably in this one out of necessity. Notre Dame wants to rely on the run game with, obviously, Riley Leonard. Jeremiah Love's an absolute freaking superstar. Jadarian Price is a very, very good number 2 back as well. The Notre Dame run game against the Georgia run defense, against the Kirby Smart defense, prides itself on stopping the run. Really, really fun matchup. What should we be looking out for in that one?
So, I think one thing that sticks out is that Notre Dame, this set of ball carriers, much more so than last year. Audric Estime was great, right?
Yeah.
But he was a big tank between the tackles who was kind of just trucking through people, right? I think the difference this year between those 3 guys and what they've had in past years is a level of speed that's just different. Look, you don't have a back breaking off 98-yard touchdown runs for nothing, right? And hurdling over people looking like track star out there, right? Jadarian Price, same thing. Riley Leonard, very underrated speed at quarterback. I think he's a guy we don't talk about enough for just the sheer explosiveness that he has in the open field, right? So I think one concern is all of them, their ability to bounce to the outside. If they get to the sideline, yeah, good luck to you. What sets it up, though, is Love making explosive runs happen between the tackles. And where Georgia is elite, is a run defense between the tackles, right? We've got Michael Williams and Chaz Chambliss do a really good job of keeping contain, and then everybody else, Stackhouse and Christian Miller on the inside, the defensive line, right? You got linebackers that are all really good tacklers. I would honestly say that Georgia's run defense is a lot like Indiana's, which was spectacular, and outside of one run, they were pretty good last week. It's a lot like Indiana's, but they tackle better.
Yeah.
And between the tackles, they only allow 3.8 yards per carry. 91 run defense grade, 0.9 yards before contact allowed between the tackles. If you're going to run on Georgia, for the most part, you're going to try to break contain on Williams and Chambliss, and you're going to run outside. You're going to bounce things. But I don't think you can just do that all night. You can't just run to the outside all night. That doesn't always work like that. So finding a way, Notre Dame, to get Jeremiah Love going between the tackles. But I'll tell you, he's been finding a way all season. 93.3 rushing grade between the tackles, tied for first in the country with
Ashton Jeanty.
Of course, it's always Ashton Jeanty. 8.3 yards per carry between the tackles this year. 8.3. And it's funny because these backs and Riley Leonard, they're such dangerous outside runners. But their offensive line is better at blocking these inside runs. You know, they run a lot of inside zone. Obviously, you mentioned it last week with Mike Denbrock. It's not a complicated run game by any means whatsoever. It's very simple. We're going to run inside zone. We're going to come right at you. We're going to throw in a few wrinkles with Riley Leonard. But for the most part, we're just trying to kick your ass between the tackles. And when the backs need to bounce, they'll bounce. Okay, I think that's the big matchup for me is this offensive line and Jeremiah Love between the tackles against the strength. The strongest part of Georgia's defense is stopping runs in the middle. You're very rarely going to go right down the pipe on them, but this is as hard a player to stop as there is in the country.
That's what makes Notre Dame's rushing attack so hard because it's so diverse, right? Because you got, like I just said, their offensive line kicks ass in the run game between the tackles, and then you have guys like Jeremiah Love can break off 100-yard touchdowns on any play. Really. And it's crazy.
And they have 3 ball carriers capable, much like we talked about before with Jeanty, of making things happen when things don't work up front. The number of plays for all 3 of them, I could go all the way back to week 1 and the big Jadarian Price touchdown that really sealed. I think it was the touchdown that gave him a lead against Texas A&M. That's a theme too. If you let them bounce and your linebackers and safeties aren't disciplined to attacking their outside shoulder, they're gone.
Yeah.
They are just straight up gone. They're going to run right by you. And then there's always the threat in the shotgun of Riley Leonard just turning the corner on you.
Yeah.
If you lose him around the corner, he can go a long way. There's a lot more speed in this Notre Dame backfield than we've seen in years past. It's a different type of running game than they had last year.
Yeah, and last year, it was very hard to defend because Audric Estime was that good and the offensive line was that good as well. But it wasn't very diverse, right? It was just going to attack you right downhill. This one, you got to be worried about them bouncing outside on you and also attacking you downhill as well, which makes it so hard.
And the option game, people might look at Sam Hartman's passing numbers from last year and go, well, Hartman's obviously the better passer. Yeah, maybe I won't disagree with that. But the option element that Leonard gives, and even the design run element, Hartman was immobile. He just couldn't do any of the things Leonard could do with his feet, and that's just it's given it a completely different look.
No, it was purely like an under center pro style type of run game last year. Just hand it off to Audric Esme and let him go, right? So now you got Riley Leonard, who's a very, very good runner, and I'm looking here, Dawn. Can you get pressure on Riley Leonard with a 4-man rush specifically in this one? Because I think Riley Leonard, look at the grading profile, is kind of an enigma at quarterback. When he's kept clean, 13th best passing grade in the country. But when he's under pressure, 101st in the country. When he's blitzed, though, 4th best passing grade in the country. When he's not blitzed, 69th best in the country. Normally, when there's a massive split between his kept clean grade and when he's under pressure, there's a similar split to blitz versus a standard rush, because the entire point of a blitz is to get pressure on the quarterback. But there is a considerable gap. It's just the other way around. Whereas if you blitz Riley Leonard, he's actually really, really good. Against the blitz, Dawn, 10 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays. Of all the quarterbacks with no turnover-worthy plays against the blitz, his 10 big-time throws are 4 more than anyone else in college football. A reason for that could be that blitzes often coincide with man coverage, an area that Riley Leonard has really performed well this year. 8 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays against man coverage. When there's zone coverage, though, 6 big-time throws and 7 turnover-worthy plays. And also, man coverage means the defenders' backs are turned to the quarterback. You just broke it down. Riley Leonard, one of the best rushing quarterbacks that we have in college football, 15 rushing touchdowns this year, tied for 5th among all quarterbacks in the nation. Now, Georgia, they send a blitz 50.5% of the time, 7th highest rate in the country. They also spend a good amount of time in zone coverage, and 72% of the time in zone coverage as well. If they decide to hang back in this game and don't send a blitz as often against Riley Leonard, a key area for me to watch is Notre Dame and how they handle Georgia's stunts in this one. Georgia stunts at about 38% of the time, 22nd highest rate in college football. Notre Dame, 82nd in pass blocking grade against stunts with a 57.7 mark in this game. If the Bulldogs can consistently get pressure on Leonard while also hanging back in zone coverage and only send 4 rushes at him, I think they could really stifle Notre Dame's passing attack that has an average receiving core and average pass protection this year. But I don't think they should be blitzing half the time like they've done all year, because Riley Leonard, like we just illustrated, one of the best in the country against blitzes.
This is the part that gives you the most hope if you're Georgia, is that Kirby Smart's got everything in the bag. He's seen it all, right? We've seen him do it with Jalen Milroe. We've seen him do it with Jaden Daniels. We've seen him with all sorts of mobile quarterbacks. So I don't think I think he's fully aware that Riley Leonard's legs are a big factor in this offense. But he's not going to be afraid, right? And you mentioned it, that you could see anything from Kirby. That's going to be the most fun part maybe of this entire matchup, is how does Kirby handle all of it, right? Do we go simulated pressure? Do we just throw Jalen Walker out there as a spy and tell Riley, you know what, sure, go ahead, outrun him. Try to outrun Jalen Walker for as good an athlete as you are, because even Milroe couldn't do it last year, right, in last year's SEC title game. So I think Kirby's approach is always the X factor in these games on defense. And again, it always helps to get in good situations if Notre Dame can run the ball in early downs like they want to. It depends on how they're going to do it. And I think to what you mentioned about the blitzes and the stunts and pass protection, it is a good offensive line. It's a very young offensive line, right? Last year with, Alt and Fisher and Carell and all those guys they had up front, ton of experience. This is the biggest game by far in the careers of any of these offensive linemen for Notre Dame. And to go against Kirby Smart, they're going to have to be up to the task, like you mentioned, in pass protection. And the man coverage, like you mentioned also with Leonard, easier to see. He knows where he wants to go with it, right? Whereas in zone, you have to really pick it apart and dissect what windows you want to throw into and which receivers are making the reads to sit down or keep going or what have you. So there's a lot. It's certainly not going to be easy on Riley Leonard. The other side, it won't be easy on Gunnar Stockton. I don't think it's going to be easy on Leonard. Kirby's always up to the challenge.
Yeah, right now Notre Dame is 10th in run blocking grade this year, 66th in pass blocking grade.
It's a young offensive line. If I am sure if we looked at it the other way and we went, okay, when there's a standard just 4-man rush, they're probably really good. But that inexperience up front now, what is it? The line, they came into the season with 6 combined starts.
Yeah,
it's still a very young unit getting through their first season starting together. I think that'll be a big thing. How much does Kirby mess with them, run and pass?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Now I wonder if Georgia, I know they play a lot of zone coverage. I wonder if they play a little more man coverage in this game as well. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see. I think
you see a mix.
Yeah,
I think you see a mix. I think Kirby's probably spent 3 weeks just drawing up everything he has because he knows he's gonna have to. If he's gonna win, he's gonna have to win a low-scoring game. This one's, if he wins, it's on him. I will say that much. It's gonna be just the magic of Kirby Smart and what he can do on defense,
and a lot of zone blitzes, I would imagine too, from Kirby Smart.
It would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, Dawn, who will win this game between Notre Dame and Georgia, and what is the Sugar Bowl, and move on to play either Penn State or Boise State in the college football playoff semifinal?
I don't know for sure, but there is a chance that I could have even picked Notre Dame when Carson Beck was in. There's a chance. I know Kirby Smart. I'm sure he will come out with some perfect game plan and pitch a shutout now that I'm going to say this, but I can't pick Gunnar Stockton against this defense. I just can't do it. Now, I do think it's going to be ugly. I think whatever the under is probably a solid bet in this one. I don't think Notre Dame's going to come out here and score a ton of points. You know what this game looks a little bit like to me? Game I mentioned earlier, we roll all the way back to week 1. Notre Dame at Texas A&M.
Oh, yeah.
We knew it would be defensive. We knew it would be running the football. We knew it would be ugly. But Notre Dame's okay playing a game like that. I think you might see a similar type game. I've got Notre Dame 20-13. I think we're going to get a slugfest. We're going to get a game where down and distance matters a lot, and getting 5-6 yards on first down is going to be a real advantage here. But I think Notre Dame finds just enough, and I'm going to trust their defense against Gunnar Stockton, and I'm going to trust their offense to just get a little bit more. And you know what? We might just find out how special. I mean, we know Jeremiah Love is special. We're going to find out how special against this Georgia defense. I think Kirby Smart, he'll have a good game plan. He's going to keep his team in the game. Georgia's going to be in it, but I can't pick Gunnar Stockton over this defense.
Yeah, I couldn't do it either. I got Notre Dame winning this one 24-21. It could end up in the teens. I guess this being a 17-14 type of game, right? I think it could be a really ugly game. It'll come down to which rushing attack finds more success and who can find a handful of big plays from their passing games, I think, in this one. Georgia's defense, obviously incredibly well coached, but I have more faith in Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love to make timely plays than I do in Gunnar Stockton making his first career start.
Who can force the turnovers?
Yeah, and
we saw the Stockton interception against Texas. That can't have those.
No, exactly. So I'm a little bit worried about him making his first career start against one of the best secondaries in college football in Notre Dame as well. So Notre Dame wins the Sugar Bowl, and they play either Penn State or Boise State in the college football playoff semifinals. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.